The man sleeping beside the parking lot grabbed my arm and shouted at me not to get in the elevator, because my daughter-in-law was upstairs preparing my downfall. I was on my way to a meeting about my husband's inheritance, wearing a navy blue dress, the same one Hector had bought me for our 40th anniversary. At 64, I thought I already knew every shape of pain. I had buried the man he shared 42 years of marriage with. I had slept for 3 months holding his pillow. I had learned to eat breakfast alone in a kitchen where I still seemed to hear his cough. But nothing prepared me for what that stranger told me in the underground parking garage of an elegant building on Reforma Avenue. Mrs. Rosa Elena, don't sign anything, your daughter-in-law Marisol wants to take everything from you. I froze. The man looked about 50. He wore an old jacket, an unkempt beard, and torn shoes, but his eyes did not look crazy. They looked like the eyes of someone terrified because he knew too much. How do you know my name? He looked toward the cameras. I worked for 12 years as a legal assistant at Sandoval and Associates. They fired me 3 weeks ago because it discovered what they do with wills. Your husband did not change anything. Don Hector left everything to you. But Marisol paid to falsify documents and make you look incompetent. I felt my knees weaken. Sandoval and Associates had been Hector's lifelong law firm. I was scheduled there at 2 o'clock that afternoon to close the estate process. My son Miguel had told me everything would be simple. Marisol had even called me that morning with a sweetness that now burned. Don't worry, Suegrita. Just sign whatever they tell you to sign. We want to take care of you. Take care of me. What a dangerous phrase when it comes from someone who wants to manage your life. That is impossible, I murmured. Hector and I talked about the will many times. That is why I waited for you, the man said. My name is Emilio Vargas. I have copies of the real will, receipts for illegal payments, and fake medical reports. For months, Marisol has been saying you forget things, confuse dates, and cannot handle money. Then I remembered small moments that had once seemed meaningless. Marisol asking whether I had forgotten to turn off the stove again, even though it had never happened. Miguel looking at me strangely when I could not remember the name of a new neighbor. Marisol offering to go with Hector to his appointments, taking notes, smiling like the perfect daughter. I pressed a hand to my chest. Does Miguel know? Emilio lowered his eyes. He knows about the debts. Maybe he does not know everything else. That hurt more. My only son, the boy Hector and I had raised with love, was somehow tangled in a trap against me. Go upstairs, Emilio said. But do not sign. Ask to read everything. And if they try to pressure you, I will come in. Why are you helping me? His face hardened. Because your husband always treated me like a person when others would not even look at me. And because losing my home did not take away my shame. Wearing expensive suits took away theirs. I went up to the 18th floor with cold hands. The reception area smelled of expensive coffee and polished wood. The secretary smiled too much. Mrs. Rosa Elena, they are waiting for you in the large conference room. Behind the glass, I saw 3 lawyers, my son Miguel, and Marisol. She looked up, and for 1 second she turned white. Then she smiled. Oh, Suegrita, I thought you had forgotten the appointment. That was when I knew Emilio was telling the truth. I sat down, placed my purse on the table, and looked at all of them. Before I sign anything, I want you to explain why you are trying to prove that I am losing my memory. Marisol stopped smiling. And in that instant, someone knocked on the door. Attorney Sandoval pressed his lips together, pretending to be patient. Mrs. Rosa Elena, no one is trying to prove anything. We only want to protect you according to Don Hector's final wishes. My husband never treated me like a child. Miguel lowered his gaze. Marisol placed her hand over his, as if she were calming him. Mom, Dad was worried. Marisol went with him to several appointments, and he mentioned that he saw you getting confused. Confused, or inconvenient? The lawyer slid a folder toward me. Inside were supposed medical reports, family statements, and photographs of me at the grocery store, at the bank, and at a pharmacy. In one picture, I was talking to a cashier. The caption said, the woman was unable to complete a purchase due to disorientation. A lie. I had been asking about a rice sale. This is false. Marisol sighed. Suegrita, we understand that this hurts you. But we have all noticed things. I stared at her. All of you, or just you? Miguel raised his voice. Mom, don't attack Marisol. She only wanted to help. Help whom? Me, or her debts? My son's face changed. There was the crack. Sandoval cleared his throat. The proposal is simple. A trust will be created. Your son Miguel will be the administrator. You will receive a monthly amount for your expenses. How much? One of the lawyers checked a page. 35,000 pesos a month. I let out a bitter laugh. Hector worked 45 years just to leave me a widow's allowance controlled by my own son. Marisol leaned toward me. Don't be unfair. You don't need that much money living alone. We have a family, a house, responsibilities. And debts. She went still. At that moment, the door opened. Emilio walked in with a cardboard folder under his arm. Security guards were behind him, but Hess spoke first. I brought the real will. Sandoval stood up, furious. This man is trespassing on private property. Call the police, I said, that will save us time. Emilio placed the papers in front of me. This is the will signed 6 months before Don Hector died. Everything goes to you, ma'am. No trust, no guardian, no restrictions. I picked up the page. I recognized Hector's signature instantly. My eyes filled with tears, not because of the money, but because my husband had not betrayed me from the grave. There are also receipts, Emilio continued. 600,000 pesos paid to the firm for a confidential testamentary restructuring. And fake medical reports made with stolen letterheads. Marisol stood up, pale. This is insane. No, Emilio said. Insane is following a widow around to photograph her and claim that buying bread is a symptom of dementia. Miguel looked at his wife. What does that mean? Marisol's breathing grew faster and faster. I only wanted to save us. The house, your business, the credit cards, save us with my mother's money. She stepped back, reached for the chair, and missed it. Her eyes rolled upward. She collapsed to the floor as the room exploded into chaos. I did not run to pick her up. I simply took out my phone and called the police. The patrol car arrived 20 minutes later. Marisol had already woken up and was sitting in a chair, her makeup running and the look of a trapped animal in her eyes. Miguel paced back and forth, repeating that he had not known anything, that he had only wanted to protect me, that his wife had told him I was not well. The detective assigned to the case was named Isabel Chen. She was my age, with steady eyes and a calmness that forced the truth out of people. Mrs. Rosa Elena, I need you to tell me when you first began noticing strange behavior. I looked at Marisol. I remembered 8 years of fake hugs, family meals, and gifts chosen with too much care. I remembered how she called me Mama Rosa when Hector was present and Ma'am when we were alone. She started planting doubts 3 years ago, I said. Small comments. That I forgot receipts, repeated stories, got confused with my medications. I thought it was concern. Emilio handed over his notebook. It contained dates, names, copies of emails, payments from the firm, and internal notes. The lawyers tried to say they had also been deceived, but Emilio buried them with invoices and audio recordings. They charged for fabricating incompetence, he said. Not for reviewing it. Marisol finally spoke. I did not want to hurt her. You wanted to leave me with an allowance while you paid your debts with my husband's life. Miguel collapsed into a chair. How much do we owe? She did not answer. How much, Marisol? More than 4 million pesos, she whispered. My son covered his face. The house, the business, the vacations, the truck, all of it was debt. And instead of asking for help, they had chosen to turn me into a useless old woman before the law. Did you know? I asked Miguel. He lifted his devastated face. I knew we were in trouble. I knew Marisol wanted me to manage the inheritance. But I swear on Dad that I did not know about the forged signatures or the medical reports. Marisol lowered her eyes. Her silence confirmed that part was true. But it did not completely save him. You believed your father had stopped trusting me. Miguel cried like he had not cried since he was a child. She told me things. That you got lost, that you hid money, that Dad was worried. I wanted to believe I was taking care of you. You did not take care of me. You doubted me. The detective requested formal statements. The lawyers were investigated. Marisol was summoned for fraud, forgery, and involvement with altered documents. Emilio, the man no one would have let through the front door, became the witness who saved Hector's final act of love. 3 days later, Miguel came to my house. He came alone. Without Marisol. He looked destroyed. Mom, I need to ask you to forgive me. It did not let him in right away. I stayed in the doorway. For believing her, or for not believing me? He broke down. For both. I let him in because I needed to hear everything. He told me his business was sinking, that Marisol had opened credit cards in his name. And that she had convinced him that if I did not need that much, using the inheritance was not theft but a family solution. Your father would have sold the house before watching you do this to me, I said. Miguel nodded, crying. I know. I am not going to pay your debts. I did not ask for that. Then what do you want? To know if Onady you will be able to look at me without feeling disgust. That question hurt me. I did not feel disgust. I felt an old sadness, a crack in the love. My son had been manipulated, yes, but he had also chosen to listen to lies because they were convenient. I don't know, Miguel. Forgiveness is not a signature. It is daily work. Marisol agreed to testify against the firm. She received probation, community service, and an obligation to repay part of the money. The lawyers were not as lucky. Sandoval ended up in prison. The case appeared in newspapers as a network off-fraud against older adults. I began working with the prosecutor's office, giving talks to widows and retirees about financial abuse within families. Miguel separated from Marisol 2 months later. He sold the house, closed the failed business, and started over an ASMAL office with no luxuries. We see each other every Friday for coffee. Sometimes we talk about Hector. Sometimes we talk about nothing. Trust is returning slowly, like a plant after a frost. Emilio now lives in the small apartment above the workshop that used to belong to Hector. I hired him to help me with the garden and the paperwork for the foundation I open it in my husband's memory. Every morning he leaves fresh bougainvillea by the entrance and says he's only returning a favor. But I know he did far more than that. He gave me back the truth. One afternoon, while going through Hector's boxes, I found a letter he had written to me before he died. Rosa, if anyone ever tries to make you feel small when I am gone, remember that you were the head and the heart of this home. Everything I leave is yours because you built it too. I cried with the letter against my chest. Not because of the inheritance. Because I knew for certain that my partner had never doubted me. Today I am 64 years old, and I do not feel fragile. I feel awake. I learned that old age does not make you incapable, but other people's ambition cantery to convince the world that it does. I also learned that family is not always the person sitting at your table, but the person brave enough to tell you the truth even when they gain nothing from it. Marisol tried to write me as a confused widow. The lawyers tried to sell me dignity for fees. My son wanted to believe a comfortable lie. But Hector left me something stronger than money, a life built with love, order, and trust. And that life, at last, was back in my hands.